So I read 5 books in the month of January, so January is already over. First month of the year is already over. But I've read 5 books and I've liked all of them. So the first book that I read was Authority by Jeff VanDerMeer. So book number 2 in the Southern Reach trilogy. I liked it, but it's not as good as the first one. It's just really too long. Actually, it's just that the story, takes way too much time to really develop. I think that it could have been shorter, just like the first one. Unfortunately, I just hope that the third book is going to be a bit better, because book 2, I think, was not as good as the first one, unfortunately. Then I read Ash by James Herbert, part of the David Ash series. I did a video last week about that, but I really enjoyed this third book in the trilogy. I think it's the weakest of the 3, but it's still one of the best James Herbert books that I've read so far. I really enjoyed that book. Right after that, I read a French book by a French Canadian. I don't think it was translated in English, unfortunately, but Haute Démolition by Jean-Philippe Baril Guérard. So it follows this humorist comedian, stand-up comedian, who falls in love with a woman, and he's, in this weird relationship. He's toxic, actually. It's all part of the Me Too movement in the background, but it asks these questions, of what are the others perpetrator that should have been maybe canceled that weren't, and that they use the Me Too movement as a, I don't want to say scapegoat, but almost, to point the blame on somebody else when they were in fact part of the problem, but they were moved to the sides just because of their stance that they took against their friends and stuff like this. So yeah, it asks a lot of good questions. It was an actually really good read. It's like 300 pages or something, and I've read that in 2 sittings. Actually, I just couldn't put this book down. It was so well done, so well thought of. It's just, if you can read French, I mean, this book is one of my highlights, essentially. Then I read Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie, so book number 2 in the First Law series. I think I like book number 2 better than book 1, just because of the character arcs. In the second book, all the characters are now more likable, more enjoyable. They're all... Jezel in book number 2 is so much better than in book number 1. I mean, his character arc is so good. I'm now reading book 3 and he's still, really good character, that in book number 1 I just didn't care about him. But yeah, all the characters are now getting better and better, actually, in book 2 and also in book 3. I just started, but I can tell, just from the start, that it's going to be, again, maybe better than book 2. I don't know, but book 3 for now is really good, and book 2 was amazing, actually. And the last book that I read, so I had this on audiobook, was Artemis by Andy Weir. I don't know how to say his last name, I'm sorry. This is the first book that I've ever read from him. I've watched The Martian with Matt Damon. I really enjoyed the movie The Martian. I might read the book just because I really enjoyed the movie, and I'm kind of curious as to see what's the book like. That being said, Artemis, I think, was a bit weaker than The Martian. It was narrated by Rosario Dawson, and I feel like she did a really good job. If I would have read this book by myself, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much, mainly because she is jazz. When she was reading the book, I really had the feeling like it was really jazz telling her story. But essentially, Artemis is settlement on the moon, and there's this fight for power, essentially, over the moon resources and people. And so Jazz, who's a smuggler, small-time smuggler, is trapped between all of this wrapped in this big corruption scheme, actually. So I liked it. The only thing that I didn't really enjoy about the book was that there's way too much scientific stuff in it. Where I kind of liked it from The Martian, I think it fits with The Martian, you know, him being this astronaut who's just trying to survive with what he has, and he had to use all that scientific knowledge to actually survive. On the moon, though, it just felt like she was showing off her knowledge, actually. So, yeah, I just feel like, you know, the scientific thingy could have been toned down just a little bit. But that being said, I kind of liked, you know, knowing how stuff worked, you know, how to create fire in vacuum. I kind of liked all of these approaches. It's just that at some point it felt just like too much information and irrelevant information to move the plot forward, unfortunately. So on with the book of the month. Unfortunately, it's going to be that French book. I'm saying unfortunately because it's not translated yet, I think. But yeah, Haute Démolition by Jean-Philippe Guérard was a revelation to me. I really enjoyed this book, and he did an interview here in a small library near where I live, and it was really interesting to actually hear all his thoughts process, but also kind of how he perceived the story and how it added to my comprehension of that story, even if I had my own interpretation. It's just, yeah, it's a complex book over complex things, and he doesn't take a stance in the book, so that's what I like best about authors, you know, when they're doing something political like this. It's when they're not taking any clear positions, just, you know, asking questions mainly and asking you to come up with your own solutions or interpretations of what they were actually trying to say. It's a very clever book done by a very smart guy. If you can read French, I highly recommend this book. It's my book of the month, my favorite book so far, and I feel like a strong contender for book of the year, maybe even. I'd go as far as this, even if we're just at the start of the year, but it was that great, actually. So as to what I'm reading now, I'm currently finishing up book number 4 in the Gap series, Chaos and Order by Stephen R. Donaldson. There's only one book remaining in that series. Right after I finish reading this series, I'm going to jump into Isaac Asimov's Foundation. But I want to finish the Gap series. I really enjoyed this book. Book number 4 it just gets better and better. It might become one of my all-time favorite series, no matter the genre, because it's that good. Actually, it's that well written. And also I'm reading The Last Argument of Kings, so book number 3 in the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. I've just started reading the book, so I'm not that far into it, but I'm really liking it so far. It might be, once again, the best one so far. It's just really good. But also, so while I'll be reading Isaac Asimov's Foundation, I want to start 2 other series. So R. Scott Baker's Prince of Nothing and Aspect Emperor. They are right here. I can't wait to read that. I actually started reading these books right before I started this channel, but I want to go back to them because I kind of liked them. And the other series that I want to start is The Fury by John Farris. So I read only one book by John Farris so far, and it's Nightfall, a book that I really enjoyed. So that's it for the first month of the year. I can't wait to read more, more series as the year progresses. As I said in my 2024 goals, 2024 is going to be a year for series for me. So I'm going to start a lot of different book series. Once again, I'm not sure if I'll be reading The Black Company. This is something that I might. Once again, mainly because it's fantasy. So if you have any sci-fi or horror anthology series, whatever, please let me know in the comments down below. Maybe something that I should read, and I'll just add this, you know, for this summer or something like this, you know, once I finish my 3 series that are started so far. So if you've made it this far in this video, I really thank you, and I will see you in the next one.